Jackson Radio Show.
Welcome back, everybody. Kevin Jackson here. I've been talking about this for a while. Wanted to go over my Ancestry DNA, and I'm pulling it up right now as we speak so I can share this with you. This is so cool, and it's funny. It makes me, I did Ancestry.com, but it makes me want to do the one that's, I think it's called 23, something like 23andMe or something like that. It's another, there are multiple services. Now, Ancestry DNA, from what I'm told, is made up of one of the largest databases of humankind out there. It was owned by the Mormons, the religious sect, the Mormons. And they combined it with some other group, and supposedly they've done these extensive DNA searches for people. And I got to tell you, it's super complicated, a lot more complicated than you might even imagine. Just go back in your family tree and try to look things up. It's very complicated. But anyway, here's my makeup. And what's interesting is that I know for a fact that I have a certain amount of American Indian, but it didn't show up. And I think I talked about this, but here's my makeup. I'm 23% Nigerian, 13% Senegalese, 13% Cameroonian, is that, or Congolese, Cameroon, Congo. Get this. This is what's going to blow you away. I'm 11% Irish, Scottish, Wales, 10% Benin, Togo, 10% Scandinavia, 7% Africa, Southeastern Bantu. Now, I don't know what that adds up to be. Let me see. 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 87%. So I'm 13% other. And I know for a fact, my great-grandmother on my mother's side was half Navajo Indian, and my grandfather on my mother's side was half Indian as well. So the number that I get in terms of their makeup is 3/32 Indian, or roughly 16%. But it only shows me as less than 1% Indian in terms of how my DNA tested. So I didn't get as much of those genes. I can only presume I didn't get as much of those genes as I might have otherwise. So I'm curious. I want to get my brother tested and see what he comes up with. But long story short, it was so interesting because I'm now connecting with all these relatives and I'm building my line. And as I said earlier, the most amazing part of all of this, outside of just looking up war records, I mentioned my grandfather on my father's side. He was a private in the Army, and he uncovered Germans behind enemy lines. And I'm looking for the clipping. I had it from years ago where they distinguish him with that, but I can't find it now. But I'm going to eventually find that. You get birth and death certificates, things like that. And you kind of, when you're working through it with somebody that's got your same DNA, it's fun because I was on the other line with one of my cousins who I'd never met. And he's telling me, yeah, man, so your uncle and my dad used to hang out together, and they didn't realize they were cousins. And then when my uncle called my grandmother, his mom, and said, yeah, I'm living in San Angelo. And she says, you have cousins up there. And my uncle goes, really? And she gives him the address. So he goes back with this buddy he's hanging out with. And he says, yeah, my mother said for me to go by and visit my cousin who happens to live here, gave me the address. So as he's going over there, the guy he's with goes, this is my house. And they found out they were cousins that way. And so now I talk to that guy's son who I've never met. And he says to me, he relays that story to me. I told him, I know your father. And, I met him 2 times, and my uncle told me this is your cousin. I didn't know how. I met your grandmother because I went to the house and didn't know who she was and I said, but now I'm putting it all together because I can put the names of the faces and I know exactly where it is. So it's a cool thing to do. But here's why I say everybody should do this test. Because, number one, as a black person, I'm glad to know where I'm from. 23% Nigerian, 13% Senegal, 13% Cameroon, 10% Benin, Togo, 7% African Southeastern Bantu, whatever. And I'm going to go research those groups of people and kind of see because I've always said to myself, I could see relatives, like when I traveled through Africa, I could see relatives. I could go, okay, this person reminds me of Aunt Pie's family. This one reminds me of, Uncle Puka's, whatever. We all got nicknames. So, but I don't, but I'm just saying those are real names, by the way. And so I would go travel through these regions and go, wow, they look like this part of my family, that part of my family, right? Now I could put two and two together. But the bigger issue is this. Every one of these people everybody should be made to take this test. And here's why. I am 11% Irish, Scottish, Wales, 10% Scandinavian. Now that's obviously slave blood. From when we were slaves. Master of the plantation blood. I'm 21% white. All right. And again, 13% other. So I don't know if that rounds it out to anything else, but I can tell from the color of my skin, I'm not, some 98% Nigerian or Ghanaian or whatever. I knew that. And now I can look at this and go, So now I've got this Scottish blood, I've got this Scandinavian blood, and by the way, I'm going to go international, and I'm going to go find family internationally and make it a big deal because I think it's interesting. But I think that everybody should have to take this test. And what it would do is it would eliminate this whole issue of black, white, and other. What do you care? Why do we care? Why are we keeping up with these stats? If you wanted to call me hyphenated, I would be, oh, you mean Kevin Jackson, that Nigerian, Senegalese, Cameroon, Congolese, Irish, Benin, Togo, Scandinavian, South Africa, African, Southeastern, Bantu American? That's what you would have to call me. That's what I am. That's my genealogy. And it's got it all, mapped out over there from the the southeast coast, the east coast of South Africa, going towards the west, up into Cameroon and up into Senegal. That's my lineage. And then I'm looking at these dots that have what percentage I am of Irish and Scandinavian. There's, big little pictures of it. Big amounts. And then where my family is in the United States. It's so cool to watch. But I think the more people know about themselves, the less we get caught up in what type of thing we are. Up until this point, I couldn't tell you what part of Africa I was from. I could just go, I know my roots are in Africa, but I didn't know what. So now I know. Does it make any difference? Oh man, Kevin knows, Senegalese. Ooh, they get really beat up on in America. I didn't realize you were Cameroonian or Congolese or Benin, Togo. Wow, dude, we got to give you some more money or you are really dejected now. No, just good old African will do. And I don't need it. I'm American. You see where I'm coming from? I want to see everybody have this test. I want to see every member of Congress have to take this test. Any member of public service. So we can get rid of all this race issue stuff.
This is the Kevin Jackson Radio Show.